Hello, and welcome to another episode of Chuchu is a Ranker, and on this episode we are going to be discussing the discography of the Scottish old rock and indie band We Were Promised Jetpacks. Formed in 2003 and hailing from Edinburgh, the band consists of Adam Thompson on vocals and guitar, Sean Smith on bass, and Darren Lackey on drums. The band did have a second guitarist, Michael Palmer, but he departed the band in 2019. And We Were Promised Jetpacks found themselves signed to the indie label Fat Cat at the behest of Scott Hutchinson of Frightened Rabbit, who was also on the label and had become impressed by the band's demos that were uploaded to MySpace. The band's first LP, These Four Walls, proved to be quite popular in the UK underground indie scene and has gone on to retain its reputation as a minor classic of its genre. Since then, the band has gone on to record 5 studio albums, but sadly have never managed to break out of the indies, with the mainstream remaining blissfully unaware of the band's existence. And as for my own fandom, yeah, I love We Were Promised Jetpacks. In fact, I'd probably put them in my favourite top 10 artists from the last 15 years. So, without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are the studio albums of We Were Promised Jetpacks, ranked from worst to best. So, we're going to be kicking off this list with Unravelling from 2014, which was the band's third LP. And I'll say straight off the bat that despite it coming in last place, Unravelling is not a poor album. Simply put, there are no weak albums by We Were Promised Jetpacks. They're all varying degrees of really, really good. And this particular album is an important one within the development of the band, as it's where they properly coalesce to find their ultimate template. Prior to this, the group were more often than not sticking to your typical verse-chorus structure that's the norm for pop and rock acts. But Unravelling marks the moment where the band let go of that format, turning wholesale into art rock and finding their natural style in the process. Although there's a lot of variety in the way they go about things, basically speaking, the majority of these tracks follow the same template of starting low and gradually building up to a fuzz and climax. Yet despite sidelining typical choruses, the band have lost none of their catchy potency, with many vocal lines and riffs sticking long in the memory. Highlights from an album with very little in the way of downtime includes Peaks and Troughs, which uses its simple arpeggiated guitar and piano riff to dig up some mesmeric and repetitive gold. I Keep It Composed exemplifies the general tonal feel of the record with its slow rhythmic build-up from threadbare art rock to thunderous rock-out badassery. Peace Sign brings a slice of textbook jangly indie pop to the table, its catchy foils hitting all those familiar sweet spots, as singer Adam Thompson ominously declares, "Through hundreds of people, you know I will settle my scores." Night Terror meanwhile has a killer opening guitar riff and a thick bass line, powering its glowering heavy-set indie rock. Disconnecting on the other hand quiets things down for a brooding minimalist dirge that eventually breaks out into a memorably hooky guitar riff, while Moral Compass hauls in some subtle synths and a deep knelled bass groove to amplify the track's dark and angry atmosphere. So yeah, add into that the steadily building overture, Safety in Numbers, and the simple jangly catchiness of Bright Minds and Part of It, and you have an engaging album of art rock that doesn't really do anything wrong. The only reason it ranks last is because the band's other records are just slightly more emotive or catchy, or have a couple more mind-blowing bangers on them. I mean, I think it's telling that this is the only album by the band that doesn't have a song featured on my top 10 songs list at the end of the video. That said, Unravelling is still a great album and more than worth taking some time to dig into. 4 stars. Next up we have The More I Sleep, The Less I Dream from 2018, which was the band's 4th LP. And here we find We Were Promised Jetpacks turning in a more overtly emotional direction and crafting an atmospheric catharsis-filled album with shoegazy tunes that are more interested in creating a relaxing, dreamlike mood than rocking out or delivering super catchy choruses. But this turn was not in the least bit surprising, as the band had been trending in that general direction for quite some time. Records like this and the following, Enjoy the View, were an inevitability. That's always where We Were Promised Jetpacks were going to end up. And you know what? I'm totally there for it, because the band were always an emotionally salient one. And as they've grown older, they've only become more and more effective at pushing those emotive buttons with pinpoint precision. When it comes to highlights, that's almost a moot point, as this album is definitely more about the overall mood than the individual pieces. Its thick atmosphere and languorously sad vibe easily stealing the show. But there are still some proper bangers to throw a brief spotlight on. Someone Else's Problem is powered by a shimmering guitar riff and a rhythmically swaggering bass line that makes the track immediately engaging. Hanging In is a fantastic Britpop callback that pays a very specific homage to A Design for Life by Manic Street Preachers, via its very obvious guitar and bass lift. All theft is forgiven, however, by a fun moment where Adam gives a cheeky wink to the audience by singing the line, "I wish I had the bottle," in exactly the same way as James Dean Bradfield's very similar line in A Design for Life, plus the tune is just beautiful and catchy. And while we're on that note, When I Know More is incredibly catchy with its mesmeric guitar lines and really bombastic vocal performance. Not Wanted pulls back the embellishments to a minimum, impressing with its low sadness and wiry guitar licks that include a real earworm of a climactic riff. While the closing title track, The More I Sleep, The Less I Dream, is an epic that pinballs between moody reflection and raging guitar squalls, as Adam growls, "I'm nothing but a curse." My favourite off of this though is the opener, Impossible. The way the track builds up into a thunderous wall of cathartic noise is just a thing of beauty. The lyrics also hit the spot as Adam sobs, "I had it all, now there's space between us. We had our plans in the palm of my hand fall between our fingers, before roaring from the very pit of his stomach, 'Impossible, the space between us.' Mwah! Chef's kiss, I absolutely adore that song." So yeah, although it's arguably the least immediate or accessible record by We Were Promised Jetpacks, a little patience pays dividends and the album wins out with its excellent atmosphere and dreamy textures. 4 stars. Next up we have Enjoy the View from 2021, which was the band's 5th LP and most recent to date. And this is the sound of We Were Promised Jetpacks arriving at their final destination, fully matured and bursting at the seams with bittersweet emotions. Without question, Enjoy the View is the most emotionally impactful record in the band's catalogue, its lyrics and soundscape single-handedly designed to pummel you right in the heart. Sonically speaking, this LP feels like a natural extension of the last 2 albums by the band. In fact, you could possibly level the criticism of them retreading too much familiar ground here, as the record stays pretty much dead centre of what you'd expect from a We Were Promised Jetpacks release. However, this album is far more than just a mere rehash, as the songs are all pretty much fantastic. They might be exactly what you'd expect, but man do they hit the spot and scratch that familiar itch. In fact, this LP houses a couple of the band's best ever tunes in my opinion. Something at least a little different for this release though is the production, which layers on the reverb and echo much more than ever before. And this gives the record an ethereal, distantly cathartic feel which in turn heightens the emotional mood of the songs. To be honest, I'm not always a huge fan when bands go crazy with the reverb, but here it works really well and totally suits the compositions. Highlights on an emotional and consistent ride includes Fat Chance, which kicks ass with its super catchy vocal lines, sprightly energy and fun jiving bass line. It's just a great jangle pop tune all round. Don't Hold Your Breath Too Long soaks itself in a maudlin atmosphere but impresses with its expertly judged build and shimmering guitar work. What I Know Now uses quietness to amplify and bring focus to Adam Thompson's voice and lyrics, both of which are beautiful and emotive. If It Happens features these blossoming swells of distortion that augments its driving bassline and ear-catching lyrics, as Adam snorts, "If I fall on my sword, would you question why I'd fall in such a stupid spot?" While Blood, Sweat, Tears is rad with its lounge jazz style guitar hits and gigantic soaring chorus that aches with a beautiful melancholy. It's just awesome. So yeah, you just can't go wrong here, from the gentle sway of the bookending duo of Not Me Anymore and Just Don't Think About It, to the wiry guitar attack of Nothing Ever Changes. There's just so much great material on offer here. Enjoy the View might be rooted deep in the band's typical wheelhouse, but it matters not a jot, as they have just refined the formula to absolute perfection while hitting spectacular new emotive highs. To be honest, when this album was released, I just didn't give it the time it deserved. But coming back to it now, I'm just stunned by the beauty of this LP. I mean, it really should have been my album of the year for 2021. 4.5 stars. Next up we have In the Pit of the Stomach from 2011, which was the band's second LP. And on this album the band go all in with the youthful energy, putting together a super energetic package with so much snarl and bite to it that it borders on metal at times. The band have often noted the influence of early period Biffy Clyro on their work, and you can definitely get a sense of that on this release. But not only is this the heaviest record by We Were Promised Jetpacks, it's also the darkest. The angular guitar work on this feels stark and icy, with the band occasionally stepping into the realms of gothic post-punk. And in terms of consistency and quality, the band just absolutely nailed it. There are 10 songs on this LP and all of them slap. And talking about things that slap, it's here that I will throw out some mad love to the rhythm section. We Were Promised Jetpacks has some really talented players for sure. Bassist Sean Smith impresses hugely during the track Sore Thumb, where his bass line is comprised of chunky bass chords, which is something of a technical rarity. Plus, Sore Thumb is just an awesome tune. It's largely instrumental, building up from a catharsis-wrapped relaxing shoegaze tune to a booming stormy rock out at the close. Mwah! Chef's kiss, that track is just beautiful. Drummer Darren Lackey meanwhile is fantastic across the band's entire discography, but he's at the top of his game here, rampaging across the tracklist like a cocaine-addled octopus. The speed and energy of his playing at the climax of the rocking lead single Medicine is quite something to behold. I mean, the guy's just going for it like a goddamn machine gun. Other highlights on a stacked outing includes Act on Impulse, which has a nice rhythmic slither and a cracked misery to it, as Adam Thompson sighs, "He died alone, he died on impact, and all this talk of death has really brightened up my week." Continuing on the misery, Hard to Remember delivers a great brooding slice of gothic post-punk that's both dark and catchy. Plus the way it suddenly turns on a dime into something quite funky at the climax is an unexpected treat. Boy in the Backseat plunges into the world of churning heaviness. Its whiplash pace and raging ferocity guaranteed to have a mosh pit going absolutely apeshit. Human Error has a sprightly catchiness to it that makes for a great late album single, while closer Pear Tree ends the record with an epic flourish, as the track quiets itself down before inevitably building back up to a roaring finale. But yeah, I could reel off the entire tracklist in the highlight section, as there's just nothing but great tune after great tune from start to finish. The record's overall brutish nature and energy just makes it just so much fun to listen to, even during its darkest and most miserable moments. Yet, In the Pit of the Stomach is an awesome LP, plus back in 2011 I listened to it pretty much non-stop. It was easily my most played album of that year, so it's also very nostalgic for me personally. 4.5 stars. So here we are at the top of the mountain, and the We Were Promised Jetpacks gold medal is going to go to These Four Walls from 2009, which was the band's debut LP. And this album hails from the fallout of Frightened Rabbit's seminal 2008 LP, The Midnight Organ Fight, which was a record that forced its way so hard into the indie rock zeitgeist that it caused a tsunami of angular indie pop bands to stick their head above the waves and try to grab a slice of that zeitgeisty pie. To be bluntly honest, We Were Promised Jetpacks was arguably one of the most typical and transparent bands from that movement. However, they were also arguably the best, and their debut, These Four Walls, arrived as a fully formed instant classic that still stands up as one of the best indie rock albums of the late 2000s. And what makes this album so fantastic is kind of hard to put your finger on. As I said, starkly angular guitar records were 2 a penny at the time, so These Four Walls wasn't particularly original or inventive. But somehow it really stood out from the pack. The songs were catchy yet sad, youthfully energetic yet mournfully resigned, and the overall atmosphere of the piece just sounded so distinctly Scottish, like it had been left out in the Highlands and lashed with perpetual freezing rain. Of course, it certainly helps that the songs are all great. The quality just does not dip on this particular album, with banger after banger coming at you thick and fast. And even when the band do take their foot off the go button, such as on the fractured art rock instrumental A Half-Built House, it's in service of creating a cohesive atmosphere. As for the highlights, well, that would be everything, but my cherry picks from a flawless tracklist would include the opening It's Thunder and It's Lightning, which sets out the stall perfectly, seesawing between lovely arpeggiated guitar lines and walls of searing distortion. The lyrics also grab the attention as they seem to be dealing with the horrors of domestic abuse. Roll Up Your Sleeves has a lovely wintry romanticism to it, its galloping guitar chords and memorably quiet ending careening towards your heart. Conductor continues on that feeling with a beautiful icy ballad that ably shows off the band's emotive chops. This Is My House, This Is My Home, it's absolutely rad. The moment where the song explodes into a full-on rock out is one of my personal favourite throw yourself around the bedroom and accidentally put a hole in the drywall moments. Mwah! Chef's kiss. Don't tell my dad about that drywall though, we'll just pretend the cat somehow did it. Quiet Little Voices is the album's obvious single and is appealingly catchy and boisterous, while Short Bursts impresses with Darren Lackey once again abusing your balls with his amazing drumming speed and energy. But yeah, you just can't put a toe wrong here. From the robust indie pop of Ships with Holes Will Sink, to the twinkling guitar lines of Moving Clocks Run Slow, to the 8-minute epic twists and turns of Keeping Warm, to the gentle acoustic come down of Closer and Almighty Thud, it's all really excellent top drawer indie rock and jangle pop stuff. 5 stars. So now I've come to the end of my deep dive, the question remains, did I gain more appreciation for the artist? And the answer is yeah, a little. I mean, I know these records inside out, so there wasn't much in the way of new discoveries, but I did end up getting a little bit closer to the most recent LP, Enjoy the View, during this run, so yeah, I did get something out of it, other than just having a damn good time in general. And that's my list, but of course I know that won't be your list, so why not sound off in the comments and tell me how you'd rank these records? Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.